Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where ancient wisdom meets modern life. I'm here to help you discover how the profound teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus can transform your daily experience in ways that feel both practical and deeply meaningful. Our mission is simple yet powerful: to make the timeless principles of Stoic philosophy accessible and immediately useful for anyone navigating the complexities of contemporary American life. Today, we're exploring something that the ancient Stoics understood better than perhaps any other philosophical school: the transformative power of asking yourself the right questions. You see, Marcus Aurelius didn't become one of history's greatest leaders by accident. His personal journal, which we now call Meditations, reveals a man who constantly questioned himself, examined his responses, and used daily inquiry to develop unshakable character. Similarly, Epictetus built his entire teaching method around powerful questions that challenged his students to think more clearly about what they could and couldn't control. Seneca filled his letters with probing questions designed to help his friend Lucilius live more wisely and purposefully. This question-based approach wasn't just an intellectual exercise for these ancient philosophers. It was their daily practice, their way of staying grounded in virtue while handling the enormous pressures of Roman political life, teaching responsibilities, and personal challenges. They understood something that modern research has now confirmed: the questions we ask ourselves shape not only how we think, but who we become. Imagine starting each day with questions so powerful they automatically redirect your mind toward wisdom instead of worry, toward growth instead of complaint, toward action instead of anxiety. Picture having a set of daily prompts that help you navigate everything from traffic jams to career setbacks with the same composure that made the Stoics legendary for their resilience. You're living in cities like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or Atlanta, dealing with commutes, deadlines, relationship challenges, financial pressures, and all the unique stresses of modern American life. The ancient Stoics lived in Rome, dealing with political upheaval, military campaigns, personal losses, and the constant pressure of leadership responsibilities. While the external circumstances have changed dramatically, the internal human experience remains remarkably similar. We still struggle with anxiety about the future, frustration with things beyond our control, and the challenge of maintaining our values when life gets difficult. The 6 questions we're exploring today aren't just interesting ideas to consider. They're practical tools that you can begin using immediately, whether you're sitting in your car before a difficult meeting, lying awake at night worried about tomorrow's challenges, or simply trying to make sense of a situation that feels overwhelming. Each question connects directly to core Stoic principles while addressing the specific realities of your daily life. By the end of this exploration, you'll have a complete system of daily inquiry that the ancient Stoics would recognize as authentically their own, yet perfectly adapted for the world you're actually living in. These aren't just questions to think about occasionally. They're designed to become your daily companions, guiding you toward the kind of inner strength and clarity that makes everything else more manageable. Let's begin this journey together by examining the first transformative question that can reshape how you approach your entire life. 1. What's my true vision for this life? You're sitting in your apartment in downtown Chicago on a Sunday evening, scrolling through social media and watching other people's highlight reels. The familiar anxiety creeps in as you wonder if you're on the right path, if your career actually matters, if the life you're building aligns with who you really want to become. This moment of existential questioning isn't unique to modern life. Nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor named Marcus Aurelius wrestled with similar thoughts as he wrote in his personal journal. In the morning when thou risest unwillingly, let this thought be present with thee, that I am rising to the work of a human being. The question, what's my true vision for this life, cuts through the noise of daily distractions and social expectations to help you connect with something the Stoics called your fundamental purpose. This isn't about setting arbitrary goals or chasing external validation. It's about understanding your role in the larger order of existence and aligning your daily actions with timeless principles that create genuine fulfillment. Marcus Aurelius understood that without a clear vision rooted in virtue, we become reactive rather than intentional. We drift from one external demand to another, measuring our worth by metrics that ultimately don't matter. When you ask yourself this question, you're following in the footsteps of someone who managed to lead the Roman Empire while maintaining his philosophical principles, someone who found meaning not in power or wealth, but in living according to his deepest understanding of what it means to be human. Seneca approached this same challenge through what he called the art of living. In his letters to his friend Lucilius, he emphasized that true vision comes not from imagining some perfect future version of yourself, but from understanding the kind of character you want to develop. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Recognizing that authentic vision requires letting go of false pursuits that society often promotes as meaningful. Let's examine how this question works in practice. Consider this scenario. You're a marketing manager in Los Angeles, earning good money but feeling increasingly empty about promoting products you don't believe in. The traditional approach might be to set a goal like find a more meaningful job or start my own business. But the Stoic approach goes deeper. When you ask, "What's my true vision for this life?" you're not just looking for a career change. You're examining the fundamental question of how you want to contribute to the world and what kind of person you want to become through your daily choices. The Stoics taught that your true vision must be grounded in the four cardinal virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance. This isn't abstract philosophy. These virtues translate directly into modern life. Wisdom means making decisions based on understanding rather than impulse. Justice involves treating others fairly and contributing to the common good. Courage allows you to act on your principles even when it's difficult or unpopular. Temperance helps you maintain balance and avoid extremes that undermine your long-term well-being. When you filter your vision through these virtues, something remarkable happens. External circumstances become less important than internal development. Whether you're working in finance, healthcare, education, or any other field, your true vision becomes about how you can embody these virtues within whatever role you occupy. This doesn't mean settling for a situation that compromises your values, but rather recognizing that your primary work is always the work of character development. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being." Your true vision isn't separate from your daily life. It's expressed through how you handle mundane challenges, how you treat difficult people, how you respond to setbacks, and how you use your talents in service of something larger than yourself. The practical application of this question involves regular reflection, but not the kind of endless overthinking that leads to paralysis. The Stoics practiced what they called evening review, where they would examine the day's events not to judge themselves harshly, but to understand how their actions aligned with their deepest values. When you consistently ask, "What's my true vision for this life?" You develop the ability to distinguish between goals that serve your ego and purposes that serve your character. This question also serves as a filter for decision-making. When you're offered a promotion that would require compromising your principles, when you're choosing how to spend your weekend, when you're deciding how to respond to someone who has hurt you, returning to your true vision helps you choose the path that builds the person you want to become rather than just achieving the outcomes you think you want. Ultimately, the question, "What's my true vision for this life?" is about recognizing that you have one life to live, and that life's meaning comes not from external achievements but from the quality of character you develop along the way. The Stoics understood that while we cannot control what happens to us, we can always control how we respond, and our responses, accumulated over time, become our character. Your true vision is your commitment to making those responses worthy of the best within you. In essence, this question transforms you from someone who reacts to life into someone who creates it intentionally, one virtuous choice at a time. This foundation prepares us to examine the next crucial question that can revolutionize your daily mental state. 2. What am I complaining about right now? You're stuck in traffic on the 405 in Los Angeles, running late for an important meeting, and you can feel your blood pressure rising as you mutter complaints about the city's terrible infrastructure, inconsiderate drivers, and your boss's unrealistic scheduling. Your mind spirals through a familiar litany of grievances about everything from the weather to politics to your neighbor's loud music. This moment of mounting frustration presents a perfect opportunity to ask yourself a question that Epictetus would have recognized immediately. What am I complaining about right now? This question isn't designed to make you feel guilty about having human reactions to genuinely annoying situations. Instead, it's a diagnostic tool that reveals where your mind is investing its energy and whether that investment is serving your character development or undermining it. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle deeply when he wrote in his personal reflections, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only to what he does himself." The ancient Stoics recognized something that modern psychology has now confirmed. Complaining rewires your brain to notice and focus on problems rather than solutions. When you habitually complain, you're training your mind to scan the environment for things that are wrong, unfair, or frustrating. This creates a negative feedback loop where you become increasingly sensitive to irritation while becoming less capable of experiencing satisfaction and peace. Epictetus taught his students that every complaint contains a hidden assumption about how the world should work according to your personal preferences. When you complain about traffic, you're assuming that roads should be clear when you need to travel. When you complain about other people's behavior, you're assuming they should act according to your standards rather than their own understanding. When you complain about the weather, you're assuming that nature should conform to your comfort rather than following its own patterns. This insight leads to a profound realization. Most complaints are really expressions of a desire to control things that lie outside your actual sphere of influence. The Stoics taught that there are fundamentally only two categories of things in existence: those you can control and those you cannot. Your complaints serve as a perfect diagnostic tool for identifying when you're attempting to control the uncontrollable, which inevitably leads to frustration and wasted energy. Let's explore how this works in practice. Imagine you're a software developer in Seattle, and your project manager just announced another last-minute deadline change. Your immediate internal response might include complaints about poor planning, unrealistic expectations, and a lack of respect for your work-life balance. Each of these complaints contains valuable information about where your mind is focusing its attention. The Stoic approach isn't to suppress these complaints or pretend they don't exist. Instead, you use them as data points for understanding your own mental patterns. When you ask, "What am I complaining about right now?" you create space between the triggering event and your response. In that space, you can examine whether your complaint is about something you can actually influence or something that exists outside your control. Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of self-examination constantly. His personal writings reveal someone who regularly caught himself in moments of frustration and used those moments as opportunities for philosophical reflection rather than emotional escalation. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't just inspirational advice, but a practical technique he used daily to redirect his mental energy toward productive responses rather than futile complaints. The practice of examining your complaints also reveals patterns in your thinking that might be sabotaging your peace of mind. Perhaps you consistently complain about your living situation but haven't taken concrete steps to improve it. Maybe you regularly complain about feeling overwhelmed, but haven't examined whether you're taking on responsibilities that don't align with your true priorities. These patterns show you where complaint has become a substitute for action. Seneca addressed this issue directly in his letters, pointing out that we often use complaint as a way to avoid taking responsibility for our own responses to difficult situations. When you complain about your circumstances, you position yourself as a victim of external forces rather than as someone with agency to choose their attitude and actions. This victim mentality, while sometimes providing temporary emotional relief, ultimately weakens your sense of personal power and resilience. The transformative power of this question lies not in eliminating all negative emotions, but in channeling your mental energy toward responses that actually serve your long-term well-being. When you catch yourself complaining about your commute, you can redirect that energy toward productive activities like listening to educational podcasts or practicing gratitude for having reliable transportation. When you find yourself complaining about a difficult colleague, you can use that awareness to practice patience and develop your capacity for working with challenging people. This shift from complaint to constructive response requires consistent practice, but the results compound over time. As you become more aware of your complaint patterns, you naturally begin to notice positive aspects of situations that you might have overlooked while focused on problems. Your mind gradually retrains itself to look for opportunities and solutions rather than dwelling on obstacles and frustrations. The question, "What am I complaining about right now?" serves as a bridge between unconscious reactivity and conscious choice. It helps you recognize that while you cannot control the traffic, the weather, or other people's behavior, you can always control whether you allow these external circumstances to diminish your inner peace and clarity. Therefore, this simple question becomes a powerful tool for reclaiming your mental energy and directing it toward the things that actually matter for your character development and life satisfaction. With this awareness of how complaints shape our inner landscape, we can now explore how proper preparation can transform our relationship with life's inevitable challenges. 3. How can I prepare for what's coming? You're lying awake at 3 in the morning in your Manhattan apartment, your mind racing through tomorrow's board presentation. What if the projector fails? What if the client asks questions you can't answer? What if your biggest competitor shows up unexpectedly? Your stomach churns as you imagine every possible disaster, each scenario feeling more catastrophic than the last. This familiar dance with anxiety presents the perfect moment to ask yourself a question that would have been second nature to any trained Stoic. How can I prepare for what's coming? The difference between productive preparation and destructive worry lies in understanding what Seneca called the practice of negative visualization. This isn't pessimistic thinking designed to make you miserable. Rather, it's a systematic mental exercise that transforms anxiety-producing uncertainty into confidence-building readiness. Seneca wrote to his friend Lucilius, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. Every man can steel himself against misfortune if he has prepared for it in advance." The ancient Stoics lived in a world where preparation could mean the difference between life and death. Marcus Aurelius commanded armies on the Germanic frontier, where poor preparation led to military disasters. Epictetus survived slavery and physical disability, experiences that taught him the vital importance of mental preparation for hardship. These weren't armchair philosophers speculating about difficulties. They were practitioners who developed preparation techniques through direct confrontation with life's harshest realities. When you ask, "How can I prepare for what's coming?" you're engaging in what the Stoics called mental rehearsal, but you're doing it strategically rather than anxiously. The key distinction lies in your relationship to the scenarios you're imagining. Anxiety-driven worry focuses on how terrible things would be if they went wrong. Stoic preparation examines potential challenges so you can develop specific responses that align with your values and capabilities. Consider how this works in practice. You're a nurse in Houston preparing for what might be a particularly difficult shift in the emergency department. Instead of allowing your mind to spiral through worst-case scenarios that leave you feeling helpless, you can use Stoic preparation techniques to build genuine readiness. You might mentally rehearse how you'll maintain compassion when dealing with difficult patients, how you'll stay calm if the department becomes overwhelmed, and how you'll draw on your training and experience to make good decisions under pressure. This kind of preparation serves two crucial functions. First, it allows you to identify practical steps you can take in advance. You can review relevant protocols, ensure you have necessary supplies easily accessible, and mentally organize your priorities for handling multiple urgent situations. Second, it builds what Epictetus called your capacity for acceptance, your ability to respond skillfully to situations that don't unfold according to your preferences. The Stoic approach to preparation recognizes that life rarely follows our scripts, but that doesn't make preparation worthless. Marcus Aurelius understood this paradox perfectly when he wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Preparation isn't about controlling outcomes. It's about developing your capacity to respond well regardless of what actually happens. Seneca taught a specific technique that modern practitioners can apply immediately. He suggested regularly imagining the loss of things you value, not to become depressed, but to appreciate them more fully while you have them and to reduce your attachment to outcomes beyond your control. If you're worried about losing your job, spend time honestly examining what that experience would involve. How would you handle the practical challenges? What resources would you draw upon? How would you maintain your dignity and continue growing as a person? This mental rehearsal serves as a form of emotional inoculation. Just as vaccines expose your immune system to weakened versions of diseases so it can build resistance, negative visualization exposes your mind to difficult scenarios so you can build psychological resilience. When challenges actually arise, they feel less overwhelming because you've already considered how you might respond. The question, "How can I prepare for what's coming?" also helps you distinguish between productive action and useless worry. If your mental rehearsal reveals practical steps you can take, those steps become your preparation. If it reveals situations completely outside your influence, you can practice accepting those realities while focusing your energy on elements you can actually affect. Let's examine a contemporary example. You're concerned about an aging parent's health and the possibility of needing to provide increased care. Productive preparation might involve researching local healthcare resources, having honest conversations about preferences and values, and examining your own financial and emotional capacity for different levels of involvement. This preparation acknowledges difficult realities while empowering you to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively when decisions become necessary. The Stoics understood that the future will always contain elements of uncertainty, but that uncertainty doesn't have to produce paralysis or panic. When you prepare systematically, you develop what Marcus Aurelius called your capacity for acceptance. You become someone who can engage fully with present responsibilities while maintaining equanimity about outcomes you cannot guarantee. Ultimately, the question, "How can I prepare for what's coming?" transforms your relationship with uncertainty from something that produces anxiety into something that builds character. Every challenge you prepare for, whether it materializes or not, strengthens your confidence in your ability to handle whatever life actually brings. Consequently, this preparation creates the foundation for consistent action even when circumstances remain unpredictable. Which brings us to our next essential question about daily commitment and progress. For what small action will I take today? You're standing in your kitchen in Denver at 6 in the morning, coffee mug in hand, staring at your phone and feeling overwhelmed by everything on your mental to-do list. The presentation needs finishing, your apartment needs cleaning, you haven't called your parents in weeks, your fitness routine has completely fallen apart, and that online course you paid for 3 months ago remains untouched. The weight of accumulated intentions sits heavy on your shoulders as you scroll through motivational content that somehow makes you feel even more behind. This moment of paralysis is precisely when you need to ask yourself the question that Marcus Aurelius posed to himself each dawn. What small action will I take today? This question cuts through the modern epidemic of overwhelming ambition that paradoxically leads to inaction. Marcus Aurelius, who managed the Roman Empire while maintaining his philosophical practice, understood something crucial about human psychology. Sustainable progress comes from consistent small actions rather than sporadic heroic efforts. In his personal reflections, he wrote, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of? If I'm going to do what I was born for, the things I was brought into the world to do." The power of this question lies in its ability to transform overwhelming complexity into manageable simplicity. When you focus on one small action, you bypass the mental resistance that emerges when facing large, undefined projects. Your brain, which tends to avoid tasks that seem impossibly large or vague, readily engages with specific, achievable actions that can be completed within a reasonable time frame. Epictetus taught his students that virtue is built through daily practice, not through grand gestures or perfect conditions. He emphasized that every moment presents an opportunity to practice wisdom, justice, courage, or temperance in small ways that gradually strengthen your character. When you ask, "What small action will I take today?" you're aligning yourself with this fundamental Stoic understanding that greatness emerges from the accumulation of ordinary moments handled extraordinarily well. Consider how this works in practical terms. Suppose you're a teacher in Phoenix who has been wanting to develop better relationships with your students' parents but feels intimidated by the scope of reaching out to 30 different families. The overwhelming nature of this goal might lead to procrastination and eventual abandonment of the effort. However, when you ask, "What small action will I take today?" the answer becomes clear and manageable. Send one thoughtful email to one parent, perhaps sharing something specific and positive you noticed about their child that week. This single action requires maybe 10 minutes of your time and feels completely achievable. More importantly, it creates momentum. Tomorrow, you can send another email to another parent. Within a month, you'll have connected personally with every family in your class, not through one overwhelming weekend of marathon communication, but through daily small actions that felt natural and sustainable. The Stoics understood that character development follows the same principle. You don't become patient by making a resolution to never lose your temper again. Instead, you become patient by practicing patience in small moments throughout each day. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when your computer freezes during important work, when your child asks the same question for the 5th time, you have an opportunity to take the small action of responding with composure rather than irritation. Marcus Aurelius modeled this approach throughout his reign. His meditations reveal someone who used daily situations as opportunities for philosophical practice. Rather than waiting for major crises to test his Stoic principles, he applied them to routine annoyances, minor disappointments, and everyday interactions with difficult people. Each small application strengthened his capacity to handle larger challenges with wisdom and equanimity. Seneca wrote extensively about this principle in his letters to Lucilius, emphasizing that philosophical progress happens through daily attention to small matters rather than dramatic transformations. He observed that people often fail to improve their lives because they're waiting for perfect conditions or sufficient motivation to make sweeping changes. Meanwhile, they ignore the small opportunities for growth that present themselves continuously throughout ordinary days. The question, "What small action will I take today?" also serves as an antidote to the modern tendency toward perfectionism that prevents action altogether. When you're focused on taking one small step, you're not worried about whether that step is optimal or whether you'll be able to maintain the same level of effort indefinitely. You're simply committed to forward movement, trusting that consistent small actions will compound over time into significant progress. This approach works because it honors how human psychology actually functions rather than how we wish it functioned. Your brain is designed to conserve energy and avoid unnecessary effort. When you present it with a manageable daily action, it cooperates willingly. When you demand dramatic changes or sustained intensity, it activates resistance mechanisms that make progress much more difficult. The beauty of small daily actions lies in their cumulative power. Each action you take strengthens your identity as someone who follows through on commitments. Over time, these small actions become automatic habits that require less willpower to maintain. What started as a conscious daily choice gradually becomes an integrated part of who you are. Essentially, this question transforms you from someone who thinks about improvement into someone who practices it daily, creating the foundation for examining what aspects of your life truly fall within your sphere of influence. 5. What can I actually control here? You're sitting in your car outside a job interview in Atlanta, hands trembling slightly as you review your notes one final time. Your mind races through variables beyond your influence. The interviewer's mood, whether they've already decided on another candidate, the company's hidden budget constraints, and even whether traffic will make the other candidates late and somehow work in your favor. The anxiety builds as you mentally rehearse answers to questions that might never come while worrying about outcomes you cannot guarantee. This spiral of unproductive thinking creates the perfect opportunity to ask yourself the most fundamental question in all of Stoic philosophy. What can I actually control here? This question strikes at the heart of human suffering and liberation simultaneously. Epictetus, who spent years as a slave before becoming one of history's most influential teachers, discovered through direct experience that freedom exists not in external circumstances, but in understanding the boundaries of your actual power. He taught his students a principle so foundational that it opens his handbook. Some things are within our power, while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, reputation, position, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. The transformative power of this question lies in its ability to redirect your mental energy from futile resistance against unchangeable realities toward productive engagement with factors you can actually influence. When you consistently ask, "What can I actually control here?" you develop what the Stoics called the discipline of desire, the ability to want only what is truly available to you and to release attachment to outcomes that depend on forces beyond your reach. Marcus Aurelius practiced this principle throughout his reign as emperor, perhaps the most powerful position in the ancient world. Yet even with nearly unlimited external authority, he recognized the strict limits of personal control. In his private writings, he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This wasn't philosophical speculation, but practical wisdom developed through daily application in the most challenging circumstances imaginable. Understanding what you can control requires developing precision about the boundaries of personal influence. Let's examine how this works in contemporary situations. Imagine you're a sales representative in Miami who just learned that your biggest client is considering switching to a competitor. Your initial reaction might involve anxiety about lost commission, anger at the client's disloyalty, or panic about explaining this situation to your manager. Each of these emotional responses focuses on elements outside your actual control. The client's final decision, your manager's reaction, or the competitor's strategy. When you ask, "What can I actually control here?" the answer becomes remarkably clear and actionable. You can control the quality of your follow-up communication with the client. You can control how thoroughly you research their current needs and concerns. You can control the professionalism and value you bring to your interactions. You can control how honestly and strategically you communicate with your manager about the situation. You can control how much you learn from this experience to improve your future client relationships. Notice how this shift in focus immediately reduces anxiety while increasing your sense of agency. Instead of feeling victimized by circumstances, you become empowered to take meaningful action within your actual sphere of influence. This doesn't guarantee the outcome you prefer, but it guarantees that you'll respond to the situation in ways that build your character and competence, regardless of external results. The Stoics understood that this principle applies not only to professional challenges, but to every aspect of human experience. You cannot control other people's opinions of you, but you can control whether your actions deserve respect. You cannot control whether you get sick, but you can control how you take care of your health and how you respond to illness when it occurs. You cannot control natural disasters, economic downturns, or political changes, but you can control how you prepare for uncertainty and adapt to changing circumstances. Seneca developed this understanding through direct confrontation with exile, loss of wealth, and eventual execution. His letters reveal someone who learned to find peace not by controlling external events, but by mastering his responses to whatever life presented. He wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." Recognizing that attachment to specific outcomes often prevents us from recognizing new opportunities that emerge from unexpected changes. The practical application of this question requires developing what might be called responsibility rather than responsibility in the conventional sense. You're not responsible for everything that happens in your life, but you are completely responsible for how you choose to respond to whatever happens. This distinction eliminates both victim mentality and grandiose thinking while empowering you to focus your energy where it can actually make a difference. Regular practice with this question also reveals how much mental energy we typically waste on uncontrollable factors. When you catch yourself worrying about someone else's decision, getting frustrated with the weather or traffic, or feeling anxious about possible future scenarios, you can redirect that energy toward elements within your actual influence. This mental discipline creates both greater peace and greater effectiveness in pursuing your authentic goals. The question, "What can I actually control here?" serves as a practical tool for emotional regulation, decision-making, and character development simultaneously. It grounds you in reality while empowering you to act with wisdom and purpose within the boundaries of your genuine influence. Therefore, this fundamental insight about the limits and possibilities of personal control naturally leads us to examine how our choices within that sphere of influence shape the person we're becoming over time. 6. Who am I becoming through this choice? You're standing at the checkout counter in a grocery store in Portland, watching the cashier struggle with what seems to be their first day on the job. The line behind you is growing longer, people are starting to mutter complaints, and you can feel the familiar irritation rising in your chest. In this moment, you face a choice that seems small but actually reveals everything about who you're becoming as a person. You could sigh audibly, make an impatient comment, or check your phone dramatically to signal your frustration. Or you could offer a patient smile, make encouraging eye contact, and treat this new worker with the same kindness you'd want if you were learning something difficult in public. The question that transforms this mundane situation into a moment of character development is one that Marcus Aurelius asked himself constantly. Who am I becoming through this choice? This question represents the deepest level of Stoic practice because it recognizes that every single action you take is simultaneously an expression of your current character and a vote for the kind of person you want to become. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle with stunning clarity when he wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." He recognized that our responses to difficult situations don't just solve immediate problems but actually shape our fundamental nature over time. The Stoics taught that character is not a fixed trait you're born with but a dynamic quality you create through accumulated choices. Every time you choose patience over irritation, courage over comfort, honesty over convenience, or justice over self-interest, you're literally rewiring your brain to make similar choices more naturally in the future. This isn't just philosophical theory but practical neuroscience that the ancient Stoics intuited through careful observation of human behavior patterns. Consider how this works in your daily life. You're a project manager in Boston, and your team member just made a mistake that will require everyone to work late to meet the deadline. Your immediate impulse might be to express frustration, assign blame, or make sure everyone knows this wasn't your fault. But when you ask, who am I becoming through this choice? You realize that this moment offers an opportunity to practice leadership, problem solving, and grace under pressure. The person who responds with calm problem solving rather than blame casting is becoming someone that others trust and respect during difficult situations. Epictetus, who understood transformation through his own journey from slavery to philosophical teacher, emphasized that we become what we repeatedly practice. He taught that every choice is an opportunity to strengthen either virtue or vice within your character. When you choose the virtuous response repeatedly, virtue becomes your default mode of operation. When you consistently choose self-interested or reactive responses, those patterns become ingrained as your automatic way of handling challenges. This understanding transforms how you approach seemingly minor daily interactions. When someone cuts you off in traffic, when a store clerk seems rude, when your neighbor's music is too loud, when your spouse forgets to do something they promised, you're not just dealing with isolated annoyances. You're in training for your character. Each response either builds the person you want to become or reinforces patterns that keep you stuck in reactive, less admirable versions of yourself. Marcus Aurelius practiced this self-examination throughout his demanding role as emperor. His personal writings reveal someone who regularly asked himself whether his responses to political pressure, military challenges, and personal difficulties were building his character or diminishing it. He wrote, "Be like the rocky headland on which the waves constantly break. It stands firm, and round it the seething waters are laid to rest." This wasn't just a beautiful metaphor, but a practical description of what he was becoming through consistent choices to remain grounded in virtue regardless of external turbulence. The question also helps you recognize the long-term consequences of patterns you might dismiss as unimportant. If you consistently choose convenience over integrity in small matters, you're becoming someone who will likely compromise in larger situations when the stakes are higher. If you regularly choose comfort over growth, you're developing into someone who avoids challenges rather than embracing them as opportunities for development. If you habitually choose self-interest over service to others, you're cultivating a character that will struggle to find meaning and connection in relationships. Seneca addressed this principle directly in his correspondence, pointing out that our daily choices are like deposits in a bank account of character. Each virtuous choice adds to your capacity for wisdom, courage, justice, and self-discipline. Each choice that contradicts your values withdraws from that account, making it harder to act according to your principles when situations become more challenging. The practical power of this question lies in its ability to elevate ordinary moments into opportunities for conscious character development. When you're deciding whether to keep a promise that's become inconvenient, whether to speak honestly about a mistake you made, whether to help someone when you're busy, or whether to maintain your standards when no one is watching, you're not just solving immediate problems. You're literally sculpting the person you're becoming through accumulated choices. This perspective also provides clarity during difficult decisions. When facing complex situations with competing priorities, asking "who am I becoming through this choice?" helps you identify which option aligns with the character you want to develop rather than just which option seems most immediately advantageous. Ultimately, this question recognizes that character development is not a destination you reach, but a process you engage with through every choice you make throughout your entire life. Building on this understanding of how individual choices shape character over time, we can now explore how to integrate all these questions into a sustainable daily practice that transforms philosophical insights into lived wisdom. 7. How do I use these questions every day? You've just learned 6 powerful questions that can transform how you approach every aspect of your life, but you're standing in your kitchen in Nashville, wondering how to actually integrate them into your busy reality. Between work deadlines, family responsibilities, commuting, and the 1,000 small decisions that fill your days, these questions might feel like yet another item on an already overwhelming self-improvement list. The key to making these questions truly transformative lies not in perfect implementation, but in understanding how to weave them naturally into the rhythm of your existing life, just as Marcus Aurelius did during his demanding reign as emperor. The ancient Stoics understood something crucial about sustainable practice. Philosophical wisdom only becomes useful when it integrates seamlessly with daily life rather than requiring separate, dedicated time that competes with your other responsibilities. Marcus Aurelius didn't retreat to a monastery to practice Stoicism. He developed his philosophical discipline while managing military campaigns, political crises, and administrative duties that would overwhelm most modern leaders. His approach offers a practical blueprint for how you can use these questions without adding stress to your already full schedule. The most effective way to begin integrating these questions is through what the Stoics called natural transition points, moments that already exist in your day when your mind naturally shifts from one activity to another. These transition moments create perfect opportunities for brief philosophical reflection without requiring additional time or energy. When you wake up and before you check your phone, when you're walking from your car to your office building, when you're waiting for your coffee to brew, when you're in the elevator between floors, these small pauses become gateways for practicing ancient wisdom. Start with the morning transition from sleep to activity by asking yourself, what's my true vision for this life? This doesn't require a lengthy meditation session or journal writing. Simply spending 30 seconds connecting with your deeper purpose while you're getting dressed or brushing your teeth can set a completely different tone for your entire day. You're not asking yourself to solve life's big questions immediately, but rather to remember what actually matters to you before getting caught up in urgent but less important demands. Throughout your day, the question, what am I complaining about right now, becomes a diagnostic tool that you can apply in real time whenever you notice frustration arising. When you're stuck in traffic on your way to work in Denver, when your computer crashes during an important project, when someone doesn't respond to your text message as quickly as you'd like, these moments of irritation become opportunities to practice emotional awareness and redirect your mental energy toward more productive responses. The preparation question, how can I prepare for what's coming, works beautifully during natural planning moments that already exist in your routine. While you're reviewing your calendar for tomorrow, while you're thinking about next week's presentation during your commute, while you're considering upcoming family gatherings or work projects, you can transform routine planning into Stoic mental rehearsal by examining not just what you need to do, but how you want to respond if things don't go according to your preferences. The daily action question, what small action will I take today, becomes most powerful when you apply it during moments when you feel overwhelmed or stuck. Instead of trying to solve everything at once, this question helps you identify one specific step you can take right now that moves you forward. Whether you're facing a cluttered house, a challenging work project, or a strained relationship, asking this question transforms paralysis into movement by focusing your attention on what's immediately possible rather than what feels impossible. The control question, what can I actually control here, serves as an emergency tool for stressful situations that catch you off guard. When you receive unexpected news, when plans fall through, when conflicts arise, when you're feeling anxious about future outcomes, This question immediately grounds you in reality and helps you focus your energy where it can actually make a difference. The beauty of this question lies in how quickly it can shift your mental state from reactive anxiety to purposeful action. The identity question, who am I becoming through this choice, transforms routine decisions into opportunities for character development. When you're deciding how to respond to a difficult email, whether to keep a commitment that's become inconvenient, how to treat someone who has been rude to you, or whether to maintain your standards when no one is watching, this question elevates ordinary moments into chances to practice virtue and strengthen your character. The key to making this system sustainable lies in understanding that you don't need to use all 6 questions every day or apply them perfectly. Some days, you might find yourself naturally drawn to 1 or 2 questions that feel most relevant to your current challenges. On other days, you might remember to ask yourself these questions only once or twice. This natural variation is not failure but wisdom, because the Stoics understood that philosophical practice must adapt to the changing circumstances of real life. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this flexible approach in his own writings, sometimes focusing intensely on preparation and planning, other times emphasizing acceptance and letting go, depending on what his current situation required. Seneca's letters show similar variation, addressing different philosophical themes based on what his friend Lucilius was experiencing at the time. The ultimate goal is not mechanical repetition of these questions, but rather the gradual development of Stoic wisdom that becomes your natural way of approaching life's challenges and opportunities. Essentially, these 6 questions become a portable philosophy that travels with you throughout your day, transforming ordinary moments into opportunities for wisdom, growth, and authentic living that honors both ancient wisdom and contemporary realities. Now is your journey forward with ancient wisdom. You now possess 6 questions that have the power to transform every single day of your life from a series of random reactions into a purposeful practice of ancient wisdom. These aren't just interesting philosophical concepts to think about occasionally. They represent a complete system of daily inquiry that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus would recognize as authentically Stoic while being perfectly adapted for the challenges you face in contemporary American life. Together, these 6 questions create a unified practice that builds upon itself. You begin each day by connecting with your true vision for life, grounding yourself in what actually matters rather than getting swept away by urgent but unimportant demands. Throughout the day, you catch yourself in moments of complaint and redirect that mental energy toward productive responses. You prepare for challenges through mental rehearsal rather than anxious worry. You take small, consistent actions that compound over time into meaningful progress. You focus your energy only on factors within your actual control, and you examine how each choice is shaping the person you're becoming. The beauty of this system lies in its practicality and accessibility. You don't need special conditions, expensive equipment, or hours of dedicated time to practice this philosophy. These questions integrate naturally into the rhythm of your existing life, turning routine moments into opportunities for growth and wisdom. Whether you're commuting to work, dealing with difficult people, making important decisions, or simply going about your daily responsibilities, you now have tools that connect you with 20 centuries of proven wisdom about maintaining inner strength and clarity. Remember that philosophical practice develops gradually through consistent effort rather than perfect performance. Some days, you'll remember to ask yourself these questions frequently and find them immediately helpful. Other days, you might only think of them once or twice, or you might remember them only after you've already reacted in ways you wish you hadn't. This natural variation is not failure but part of the learning process that every Stoic practitioner experiences. Marcus Aurelius didn't become a philosophical emperor overnight. His personal writings reveal someone who struggled with the same human tendencies toward frustration, worry, and reactive thinking that you experience. What made him extraordinary was his commitment to daily practice, his willingness to examine his responses honestly, and his patience with his own imperfect progress toward wisdom. Your journey with these questions is just beginning, and the transformative power of daily Stoic practice will unfold gradually as you apply ancient wisdom to your contemporary life. Each question you ask yourself becomes a step toward the person you're capable of becoming. If this exploration of daily Stoic questions has provided value for your life, I encourage you to subscribe to the Stoic Vivu channel so you can continue discovering how ancient philosophy can transform modern living. Please like this content if it resonated with you and share it with others who might benefit from these timeless tools for daily wisdom. Your engagement helps us build a community of people committed to living with greater purpose, resilience, and inner peace through authentic Stoic practice.